Hey YouTube, good
Hello,
to see
hello.
you.
Hi,
Happy
everybody.
Friday evening, Saturday morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. It's really good to be with you. I'm Dave, and I'm joined by Sean, Kip, and Cassie. And we're also going to be joined by Dr. Chaffee soon. Sean, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, man. Hey, everybody. It's good to see everybody. I'd like to welcome you all. If you're here for the first time, hit that like button, hit that share button, subscribe to wherever you're watching, then make your way around once it's over to the rest of us. We sure would appreciate it. I'm just glad to see everybody. I see a lot of names and everybody that I recognize, and I'm happy to be here again with you guys. Cassie, Kip, Dave, man, it's awesome to see you guys tonight. I'm always excited when we get together and chat and hang out for a little bit. So, Cassie, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. Thanks for having me on here, guys. This is really exciting. Hi, Dr. Chaffee.
Hey, Dr.
Hey, how are you?
Chaffee.
Very
Hey.
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, very nice. So, guys, just as we're getting into it, we've got 184 people in the stream at the moment. Please, if you haven't already, please smash the like button. That will get YouTube to go out and get more people into the live stream. So that's more chatting and questions for all of us. So that creates a better discussion. And when you're putting your questions in, please add a Q in front of the questions so that it's easy for us to find, because my eyesight is not so good today. And yeah, so Cassie, how are you doing?
I'm doing most wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is really exciting. I know y'all have asked me before, and I just thought, okay, now it's time. So this is just really cool. I'm very happy to be here, and it's been an awesome day. How is everybody else?
How you doing, Kip?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be on here tonight and chatting with everybody. It's really good that everybody, because I know everybody has busy schedules and busy lives, and we're all over the world. Some of us are in different countries, but it's good when we can get together and talk carnivore and try to encourage each other. I guess I'll pass it. What about you, Dr. Chaffee? How you doing tonight?
Yeah, well, no, I'm good. Good. Thanks, guys. And thanks for, like you say, trying to coordinate everything so everyone can meet up. This is great.
Absolutely.
So
Always have fun.
Yeah, so we got our first question from Ahmad. He's asking, I am tired of the carb crash, but I am a gym rat. Can I still bulk up with only a carnivore diet? Of course, being in a caloric surplus. So, Dr. Chaffee, as someone who I guess you go to the gym, can you bulk up with just carnivore?
Yeah, I've never found any other way of putting on lean muscle mass easier. Now you can put on fat, and you can clog up your muscles with water and glycogen, and intramuscular fat is called myosteatosis, which some people who haven't heard of that before think, oh, that's a myth or something like that. But that's exactly what happens when you eat carbohydrates. You store fat and glycogen in your muscles and other tissue. This is how we get marbling on cows and other animals, by giving them carbohydrates, grains, and things like that. So we see this as doctors. And we see this on imaging all the time. It's called myosteatosis, myomuscle steatosis, being fat infiltrating, right? And so that's sort of where that big bulky plump comes from. Bodybuilders on their building phase, when they're putting on a whole bunch of weight, and they put on fat and they put on muscle as well, and then they cut down and they just lose tons and tons and tons of that, and they go, oh, well, you have to lose some muscle to lose the fat as well. No, you don't. Actually, you don't have to lose any muscle at all. What you're losing is fat and glycogen. So this is the easiest way of just putting on lean muscle mass, and so all the weight that you put on is yours to keep. That doesn't go away afterwards, because it's not just temporary bulk, and it's not just there for appearance. It's actual muscle. And so, yes, the thing is, you just need to eat enough. So the thing is that people say, like, well, if you eat if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, then that will force in extra calories. That's not what you need. You need just meat and fat, right? And so if you're working out, you will stimulate your body to grow and you will stimulate your appetite. And so as long as you're giving your body what it needs, and so you keep eating meat, fatty meat, until it stops tasting good, you know, your body will use that to put on muscle. So you work out, you lift weights, you sprint, and then you eat enough. And that's the main thing. So, you know, you don't have to force your body to get in extra food. Your body will want extra food. When I'm working out, when I'm just sedentary, I'll eat X amount a day. It's usually pretty consistent. And then when I'm working out regularly, it will literally double. I will have to eat 2X. And when I'm doing that, if I actually get that in, I put on a ridiculous amount of weight. You know, I've been a big guy. I've worked out since I was a kid. And so it's maybe just easier for me to put back on muscle and weight that I've had before. But either way, if I do a heavy workout, I can put on a pound of muscle every time I go to the gym. If I'm doing a heavy leg workout, I can put on close to 2 pounds. And I've just tracked this. I've tracked this on scale. It's absolutely nuts how easy it is when you're working hard and giving yourself adequate amounts of food.
Nice. Okay, so Kel is asking, been seeing a lot lately about carnivore diet and vitamin C, danger of getting scurvy. Is that really a problem with the carnivore diet? So, Sean, how's your scurvy going?
Man, I tell you what, you know, shiver me timbers. I haven't had an issue with vitamin C. I haven't had any vitamin deficiencies since I started eating this way that I didn't have prior to coming to eat this way, if that makes any sense to you. I was deficient in vitamin D along with all the other issues that I had that I've reversed. So, you know, it's been a fair trade-off. I feel much better now than I've ever felt. So, you know, I know that a lot of people look at it, well, how are you getting your vitamin C? And maybe, you know, one of the others can explain, you know, how you're going to be able to get those essential nutrients and vitamins that you're not getting from the meat technically. But as far as I haven't had any deficiency, I haven't developed scurvy. I haven't had, you know, any kind of weird things happening. That the only thing I've experienced is feeling a lot better. All of my labs have gotten better and improved. And so honestly, it's not something that I've ever worried about or even given a whole lot of thought about. I try my best not to get sidetracked into these friends, you know, and I understand, you know, maybe vitamin C is a big concern, you know, but at the same time, when I was eating a standard American diet, I didn't give a crap what my vitamin C level was. I feel way too good now to, you know, to worry about it now. So you know, maybe somebody else has a better answer than that, but I mean, that's just me being 100% honest. Kip.
Oh, yes.
Oh, sorry. I forget.
I was kind of gonna say just gonna say what you said at the very end. Whenever I was eating the way that I was eating before, I could care less about any of the vitamins. I wasn't focused on them, and I'll be honest with y'all, I didn't even know what scurvy was until about a month after I started Carnivore. So I didn't have time to worry about it. The only thing I was worried about was losing pounds, and that's been working out well. So I'm just keep doing what I'm doing and listen to guys like Dr. Berry and Dr. Chaffee. What about you, Cassie?
I've never had any issues with vitamin C before eating carnivore, and I don't even know what type of symptoms scurvy has. That would be more of a question for Dr. Chaffee, because I've not experienced it. I wouldn't even know where to begin to answer that.
Yeah, well, you don't get scurvy. I mean, if you did, the Inuit wouldn't be here. A lot of populations wouldn't be here. None of us would be here. You know, it was thought that without adequate vitamin C exposure or intake, that you would get scurvy within a few months, right? And so, that's obviously not happening. I've been going on this nearly 6 years. When I was doing this for 5 years in my early 20s, I remember thinking to myself, I was like, do I need to eat a banana or something? Should I like take a multivitamin? Is there something I'm missing here? And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, well, my gums aren't bleeding and I feel good. So I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep going with this and ride it out and see what happens. And no, you don't get this problem. I mean, think about this from first principles. We have been designed to eat meat, and that's our, like 70% of all animals or animal species on Earth, we just eat meat, right? So we've been designed to. So by definition, you're going to get everything you need in the proportion that you need it if you're eating your biologically designed and biologically appropriate diet, right? So there are a couple of reasons why you don't need as much vitamin C as they say. First of all, when we were looking at the RDAs, we were looking at people that were eating a mixed diet, right? And if you're eating different things, you need a different constellation of nutrients. Also, our good friend, Dr. Oh gosh, what the hell is this stupid name? I can't believe I forget this guy. He's like my imaginary nemesis. The guy that came up with the cholesterol theory of heart disease. Anyway, that idiot. So he came up with the RDAs as well, and so I mean, God knows if that was one of the few honest endeavors that he actually made. So, but I think everything that guy's done is completely suspect. I mean, he had to do some good work in order to get into a position to be able to sell out to the highest bidder with the whole cholesterol thing. But either way, it was done at a time when people were eating a mixed diet. So when you're eating carbohydrates and vitamin C compete for binding sites with the GLUT4 receptor. And so if you're eating carbohydrates, it's going to block out a lot of the vitamin C. You're going to have taken a lot more carbohydrates than you are vitamin C. Vitamin C is trace vitamin, right? And so if you are eating carbohydrates, then you need vitamin C measured in milligrams, right? But if you're not eating carbohydrates, then you need vitamin C measured in nanograms, which is 1/1,000,000th of a milligram, right? So it's a massive, massive difference in how much you actually need to take in. Also, what do we need? What is scurvy? Scurvy is misdeveloped, misformed collagen, so it doesn't stick tightly together, or doesn't hold tightly together, and it's loose and it breaks down, so you have breakdown of your connective tissue, and this can cause a lot of problems. Scurvy being the most obvious, but long before that, you can have issues before that. And the what vitamin C does is it hydrolyzes proline and lysine so that they bind more tightly together and form this great strong collagen. And when you're eating a lot of meat that has collagen, you're already getting those hydrolyzed proline and lysine. So you don't actually need as much vitamin C to do that. There are other things that vitamin C does, right? So, people say, well, there's an antioxidant effect. Sometimes you see them in like little neutrophils or macrophages in some of the innate immunity cells. But in fact, we have a lot of other antioxidant effects. Vitamin C isn't our main one. We don't even make vitamin C. Most animals do make vitamin C. We used to make vitamin C, then we stopped that, and it's thought that we replaced that with urea. And urea is actually our body's strongest and most abundant antioxidant. So we have that, and that actually goes up when you're eating a carnivore diet and eating more protein. So you don't actually need the vitamin C for that antioxidant effect. You don't need as much of it when you have a good amount of urea and other sorts of things, and you're not bringing in a whole bunch of oxidative substances. So it's not needed nearly as much on a carnivore diet. You have other mechanisms and means of doing what vitamin C can do for others eating a mixed diet. So no, it's not something that you're going to have a problem with, and it definitely does not cause scurvy. If it were to cause scurvy, people would be dying in 3 months, and they're not.
So that's not the only thing that we're seeing. That not only is our demand for the necessity of vitamin C being lessened, but we're seeing what's potentially our blood living longer So you're seeing a lot of the issues with, what is it that people's A1C or glucose going up really being an issue with your blood, your erythrocytes or whatever living longer, and lots of other issues like that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. So yeah, with the red blood cells living longer. So we look at HbA1c as an average for 3 months of our blood sugar level, but that only works if your blood cells are living on average 3 months, right? And there are things that can increase their lifespan, which would artificially raise that HbA1c number, right? Because now that's an average of 3.5 months, 4 months, but you're considering it on a 3-month scale, right? So that's going to be a higher number than it would be if you stopped the experiment at 3 months, right? Or you can artificially reduce the number by, if the red blood cells aren't as healthy and they die off earlier, then you're only getting 2.5 months or 2 months average as opposed to 3 months, right? So the things that could shorten the life of your red blood cells are things like the plant sterols. So you're eating plant oils, even the better ones such as coconut oil or olive oil or avocado oil. These still have plant sterols, which are similar enough to our own cholesterol that they can be taken up and used as cholesterol and put into the cell membrane of cells, and that is what will shorten the life or lengthen the life of a red blood cell is having a mobile, flexible cell membrane, because when it stiffens up, it can't go around little tight corners and capillaries. That's when your body takes it out and your spleen just pulls those out. It's like, no, you're taking too long. You're going to clot up and you're going to get stuck. Can't have that. So they rip those out. And so they're going to get stiff a bit quicker if you have a lot of plant sterols. And so people that are eating a lot of plant oils, they might have an artificially low HbA1c. Now that HbA1c may be high, but it's not actually indicating what the 3-month average is. And then, if you go on a carnivore diet, there are many carnivores that have, HbA1c, in 4.8, something like that, 4.9, which is great. But, some of them will have it sort of creep up a bit. So maybe they're in the, the low 5s or whatever, and then sort of creeping up, or maybe even goes to 6. But they're checking their blood sugar on a daily basis, and it's always very low.
Is low. Yeah,
exactly. So that normally, if HbA1c is getting higher, that would indicate an average higher blood sugar, but actually they're showing a low blood sugar always. It's just lower. Like, okay, well, maybe my monitor is broken, they get a new one. No, it's the same thing. It's low, right? And so that is indicating that their blood cells are living longer and just being exposed to a lower amount of blood sugar for a longer period of time. And that's what that shows.
Good stuff.
Nice one. Okay, so we've got a super chat here from Alia. Thank you very much, Alia. She says, love this carnivore family. Also, I have a question in the chat, which I'm going to bring straight up here. So Ali is asking, does blood type matter? My mom believes that I do well with carnivore because my blood type is O. She is a type A plant-based and thinks that that's the best for her. Is this relevant? I'm going to guess no, it's not. I'm type A and I do okay on carnivore. Any thoughts, Cassie?
No, absolutely not. That is for either Mr. Sean or Dr. Chaffee.
Yeah, I would say it definitely matters if you're getting a blood transfusion. If you get shot and you go to the hospital and you need to be given blood, it's going to matter. When it comes to what you should be eating, I'm not real convinced that I've heard all the things about your blood type and eating a certain way. I'm just convinced that we are, as long as you're a human being, your body essentially works the same way. And while the levels of what you can tolerate and live successfully and optimally may be different from your neighbor, your friend, or your family, the makeup of the nutrients that you need are all the same. And blood type, it is what it is. Maybe you'll get a different explanation from Dr. Chaffee or somebody.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just think of it this way, you know, I mean, do lions with different blood types eat different things? Do elephants with different blood types need to eat different things? Do whales with different blood types, one needs to eat krill and the other needs to eat, seaweed, or grass or something ridiculous like that. So, I mean, your blood type is one protein, or maybe two proteins, A and B, and then you have your rhesus factors and things like that. These are antigens on the surface of your red blood cells, right? How is one protein difference or two protein differences on the surface of your red blood cells alone? How is that going to fundamentally change your entire digestive tract and biological nature? That doesn't make any sense. So I have no idea how that thought of blood type having such a great effect on diet got so much traction just based on that simple premise. That how could one protein difference make such a massive difference in just completely overhaul our entire digestion and change us as a species? Because if you have one animal that's an obligate herbivore and one animal that's an obligate carnivore, those are two different species. You will never, ever find that in the same species anywhere in the world. It's not possible. Like if you're that different, you are not the same species. And so, that's not going to be a thing. So humans are humans. We're Homo sapiens sapiens, right? And we've been genetically pretty conserved for the past few 100,000 years. And so again, you'll never find two members of the same species that have different optimal diets. You might find people that are more or less equipped to eat suboptimal things. Some people have more tolerance. But if I have more of a tolerance to lead poisoning than Sean does, that doesn't mean that lead is good for me. It just means that lead is less bad for me, right? And so that can be the same thing, with nightshades or other sorts of foods that we've been cultivating since the agricultural revolution. And one person's ancestors may have had exposure to that for 10,000 years, and others, like the Australian Aboriginals or the Native Americans in most areas, like the Plains Indians who were just eating buffalo, did not have that exposure until very recently, and they're actually going to be much, much more susceptible to the detriments to health that those exposures will cause. But for neither of us did that change what our optimal diet is. And like Dave, I'm type A, which is supposed to be, according to blood type diet, a vegan diet. You're supposed to be just plant-based all the way. And I am most definitely not. But, the thing is like, it's as good a guess as any. When you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, might as well go on blood type, and some people see some sort of, correlations and things like that. And it makes sense because people just have no damn idea how we're supposed to eat, because they listen to all the dogma and say, eat the pyramid and do all these sorts of things, just making them fat, sick, and unhealthy. And then someone says, hey, we'll do this, eat according to your blood type. And they go, okay, well, God, I guess it's something. I'll try anything at this point. And what that does do is it focuses your mind, and you start eating more consciously, and you start eating whole foods, because I don't think any blood type is the deep fried trans fats and fast food blood type, right? It's all whole food diets, right? And so now you're consciously going like, okay, I need to eat this category, but you're going to be making that stuff yourself, and you're going to be making whole foods, and that's always going to be better than the highly processed, ultra processed, junk food, seed oil, processed carbs, and sugar diet.
Yeah. Nice. So Rebecca is asking, just started Carnivore last week. How do you handle eating out on vacation? So Kip, did you want to take this one first? How do you handle eating out on vacation?
Well, you could always fast, but no, on a serious note, I just try to do the best I can whenever I'm on vacation. And I mean, sometimes I'll have like a bunless burger somewhere at some restaurant, or I'll get a steak. It might not have be the best quality of something, but I just do the best that I can, and I definitely make sure I stay away from anything that's got carbs in it and or things like that. You can find something if I was in a really, really pinch, like then I would get some hot dogs from a gas station or some Vine or sausages, if y'all even know what that is. But you just do the best you can. There's always a way to stay carnivore. You just got to get creative and find the way. What about you, Kathy?
Oh, so recently I took a vacation and I drove and I took burger patties with me and some bacon. So those were my snacks on my way. But in the past, Larry and I, we've taken an air fryer to a hotel that didn't have either a microwave, there was no kitchenette to it. So I would say take something like that with you, or find a hotel with a kitchenette and you can cook your own food. At least you know what you're eating then. Take some steaks, yeah, I would just make sure that you're prepared and have snacks on hand. That way you're not tempted to dip out and hit a fast food restaurant. And, sometimes you're looking at that food and it looks awfully tempting and it's very easy to slip. So just be prepared, take some food with you and cook while you're there. I'm not sure where it goes next. Would that go to you, Sean?
Sean, you got any ideas?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, like Dave alluded to, you got to, if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. Obviously, have a plan in mind before you go on vacation, what you're going to do, and that's what I personally try to do, try to have an idea, like if, how I'm going to eat, where I'm going to eat, what I'm going to do, no matter what the situation, what are you going to do whatever circumstances you face? You go to your family's house and they eat this way, or you're tempted. Don't set yourself up for failure. Set yourself up for success. Make a plan, stick to it. Have those things in mind. Obviously it may not be ideal. You may have to settle for a steak at a place that that you normally wouldn't, but I mean, you can almost, I don't know of anywhere you can't in the world, you can't get some form of, well, I say in the world, I haven't been out of the country, maybe over there in Australia where Dr. Chaffee is, you can't get a steak anywhere all over the place, but there's some form of ruminant animal somewhere, or, animal product that you can eat and have a plan to get you through. My thing is, I try also to spend the least amount of time that I possibly can thinking about food. And for the last little over a year and a half, I really honestly do not think about food. Like when I think about food the most, when my stomach and my body is like, you got to get something to eat because you're dragging, you're tired, you just get those signals and it's saying, hey, look, you haven't eaten today. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you push through doing whatever, you better go get something to eat or you're going to run out of energy, So, I mean, that's just kind of how I try to look at it, how I view it and how I plan for it. What about you, Kip? No, you already got Kip. Sorry, I'm losing my mind. Dr. Chaffee.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. So, I mean, like, there's always meat on the menu. Like, unless you're actually going to a full-on vegan restaurant. I mean, even vegetarian restaurants should have eggs, right? So there's always going to be something. So you can get eggs and bacon. You can go to a McDonald's and get just the beef patties and things like that. Any port in a storm sort of thing. But yeah, I agree that it's good to plan ahead, bring food with you. If you're going for an extended period of time, or they don't let if you're flying to a different country, they don't let you bring meat with you to the other side. You could try, but they might catch you. You might be in trouble because of that. But you can generally bring stuff on the plane. I mean, there's almost never going to be enough meat on a long plane ride. But if it's just like a short plane trip, it's not that big of a deal. But I've gone to like cutting up steaks or pieces of meat, putting them in the dehydrator, and just bringing those and having just big meat cookies just to bring with me. And for like long flights, when I flew to Costa Rica, I had those with my girlfriend Elle, and we were just eating dried ribeyes for 40 hours. So it was like it was fine. We didn't need to worry about not having food, access to food on these big flights. And yeah, so if you're going for an extended period of time and you can't really bring enough food for the whole trip, just remember that there's always meat on the menu, and just look for the options that work best for you, and just ask them not to bring it with all the other garbage on the sides. As weird as it sounds, fast food places where you can just order the burger patties plain is actually a pretty good option. I've spoken to them certainly at Burger King and Hungry Jack's in Australia and McDonald's, and they don't use seed oils. They're not frying it up in a pan or anything like that. McDonald's uses like sort of like a sandwich press sort of things where it just sort of cooks it on both sides. They don't use any oil. And Burger King is all about the flame grilled Whopper sort of thing. So you're not going to get a bunch of seed oils. It's just cooked more normally. And I've seen the ingredients list, and it's just cow. Like that's what they use for these patties. So there are always options, and just be mindful that you can always just order something that contains meat in the off the menu, and just eat that part of it. But then cook for yourself too. Exactly. As I was saying before, like if you can get an Airbnb or something like that where you can cook yourself, that's always the best option.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So we've got a super chat here from Riley Nichols. Thank you very much for that. And I can't pronounce it, so I think this one's going to go straight to Dr. Chaffee. So, is this diet safe for someone with B thalassemia traits?
Yeah, close. Yeah, it's a beta thalassemia. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So regardless of your genetic, idiosyncrasies, you're still human, right? There's nothing that's going to be on your blood test or your genetic test that's going to show you that you're not human if you're human, right? And so all humans are designed primarily to eat and to respond the best to and thrive on fatty meat. And so, yeah, in fact, I've seen people with thalassemia actually improve their symptoms, and other genetic issues as well improve, because we're giving our body what is optimal for our body, and our body's able to run more optimally, and we're excluding things that are suboptimal and that can actually cause harm. That's why I always stress that it's as important what not to eat as what to eat, right? So no plants or fungus, no sugar or sweeteners, nothing artificial. That goes for sauces, seasonings, and drinks as well, if you want to be as pure as possible. Not everybody does, but some people with certain issues really do need to be pretty strict on it. And so you'll find that a lot of people with whatever genetic issue, they actually improve dramatically. I've seen people with Ehlers-Danlos, which is loose connective tissue. We were talking about vitamin C, and they're like, oh yeah, you can get problems with scurvy and stuff like that. No, actually, you see the opposite. You see people with collagen issues, with connective tissue disorders like Ehlers-Danlos, that don't make collagen properly. Now all of a sudden, because they're eating meat and they're getting all this all the pre-made building blocks for collagen, all of a sudden their collagen starts tightening up, their joints start tightening up, they stop getting joint dislocations and stop being symptomatic. That's pretty amazing. So even though they have a genetic predisposition for something, it's not actually being manifest because they're actually eating properly. So as they say, genes load the gun and environment pulls a trigger, right? So you have to have you have to have a genetic predisposition and an environmental trigger to get the disease, right? So if you don't have the genetic condition, then the environmental trigger doesn't do anything. It's not triggering anything. But if you if you have the gene and you don't get the environmental trigger, well, then the gene's just sitting there dormant and you're not going to have a problem. So a lot of these genetic issues are actually triggered by eating the wrong thing or not enough of the right thing. And so not only is it safe, it might actually improve your symptoms as well. I can't guarantee in your particular case, but I've seen remarkable results with people with mad genetic issues, absolutely insane improvements. I mean, I go on this, I think I bring this up every time, but there are now anecdotal accounts of a few people with Huntington's disease that are actually improving their symptoms with a carnivore diet, which is absolutely insane. I thought that was a 100% penetrance, where it's just 100%. You have that gene, you will get Huntington's. No exceptions. That's what I was taught in medical school, and yet there are people improving by going on a carnivore diet. I think that's just absolutely remarkable. And so nothing's really off the table for me now. It's just sort of a wait and see. Yes, it's safe, and it might even improve your symptoms. It's going to improve your issues in 1,000 other ways anyway, and so that's going to be worth it in itself.
The thing, we already talked about your red blood cells living longer potentially on carnivore, and one of the issues with that disorder is that their hemoglobin is being affected and their blood cells aren't living as long. So it's going to give your body a longer time to build up those cells. If the blood cells are staying alive longer, it's going to help you out, right? You know, your body's not going to be under such demand because those cells are living longer. So, you know, I agree with you on that.
If I could just ask a question, is this diet unsafe for anybody, Dr. Chaffee?
No, that's it. You know, any human is going to benefit from this. You know, even cows, benefit from this. You know, I mean, this is the most bioavailable nutrient source that exists. You know, they actually put in, ground up, cows and other livestock in feed for other livestock to get them the nutrients that are deficient when they're in a feedlot, like the grains and things like that, because they are lacking. But, the animal tissue, we were trying to build and create animal tissue by eating. That's the whole point of eating, right? Is to build and maintain our bodies, which are animal tissue. And so it's actually very difficult to turn plant tissue into animal tissue. Not every animal can do this. Only about 30% of animals are any good at it. And these are the herbivores and omnivores out there. 70% of animal species are carnivores, right? Because they are not good at turning plant tissue into animal tissue. But the herbivores, you'll still find herbivores eating other animals, smaller animals, horses eating little baby chickens and things like that. I have a video on my Instagram on the highlighted sort of reels called carnivores, and like there's just a horse in a barn just looking up, and there's this little baby chick sort of following around, boom, and it just eats it up, and you're like, oh god. It's a bit startling. And other videos of deer and elk and things like that, like eating bunnies and snakes and and chicks and things like that. These are bioavailable nutrients, and they're bioavailable to herbivores and carnivores. The difference between the two is that the herbivores can also get unlock bioavailability from plants that are not bioavailable, and it could be toxic to other animals as well. So either way, there's since this is our optimal diet for our species, it's going to be optimal for everyone. That's the whole premise. You have different things that are better or worse that are suboptimal, right? People of European descent have a bit more protection against grains and all these other sorts of plants and sugars and things like that we've been eating and had exposure to for thousands of years, longer than Aboriginals and Native Americans and other populations that have not had that exposure and have not built up some genetic defenses during that time. So some things can be better or worse that are suboptimal, but there's still going to be an optimal. Krill is still optimal for the whales that eat krill. It doesn't matter what slight differences there are in that species of whale. If they eat krill, they all eat krill. Lions eat what lions eat, period, across the board. They eat meat, right? There's no lion that is going to benefit from grasses more than they're going to benefit from meat, right? And so the same thing goes with us. If you are human, then as Ken Berry says, you need a proper human diet. That's going to be better for everybody. So what is our biologically appropriate species specific diet? That is a high fat carnivore diet, and that's going to be the most beneficial for everybody in every situation.
Nice. So Trucker Bear 76, thank you very much for your super chat. Greetings from New York. Thanks for connecting, mentoring, and sharing your time to help people. Thank you very much. And we've got also a super chat here from Jeremiah Hart. Considering that freezing meat can denature protein and oxidize fats, is it a concern when consuming so much meat? Should I always opt for fresh? Sean, have you got any thoughts on that?
I always get as fresh as I can get. I mean, honestly, the nutrients, when the fresher it is to me, I don't dry age. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I literally go to the shop, to the meat market, buy a rib roast, have them chop it up. I'm good to go. Like I said, I guess I don't have a whole lot to offer as far as that's concerned, because I spend so little time. Last night, Dr. Kiltz was talking about, dry aging one of his steaks because he's in the middle of a fast. I mean, I guess maybe if I were fasting, I'd probably be thinking a lot more of it. But, I like it fresh. I don't like it, dry aged and stuff like that very much. But what about you, Cassie? You eat the dry age? What you think about that?
Well, I'm not exactly sure, like the chemical process that happens between fresh meat and then when it does go to frozen. But I do know that when you freeze meats, obviously the taste and texture will be different. But like, for example, I have vacuum sealed very good salmon. And when I've thawed it out, vacuum sealed it and froze it. And when I thawed it out, most of the fat had disappeared. Now, I don't know if it combines with the water. Like I said, I'm not exactly sure of the process, but there is a difference, and how it affects the nutrition, I really wouldn't know, but I know that there is something to that.
I would imagine that people that live in colder climates, like I would imagine that they, throughout different times of the year, freeze meat and try to store meat in different ways, like years ago before we had the resources that we have nowadays. And honestly, for me, if freezing meat is a problem, then I'm in deep trouble, because I smoke meat all the time, and I can't just always go grab a fresh brisket the day that I'm going to cook it, because it takes like 10 hours to cook it. So I keep my freezer slap full of meat. And like I have a deep freezer, and then I have a freezer and fridge outside, and then I have my main refrigerator in the house. So I always have my refrigerator full, and I don't want to just keep my refrigerators empty and my freezer empty just so that I could get fresh meat every day. What about
what
you,
time
Dr.
we
Casey?
eating? What time we eating? That's what I need to know. If your freezer is full, we should have got the invite by
Whenever
now.
y'all all come to Alabama, I will fire up the smoker when y'all show up in Alabama.
We will talk later.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, there's going to be some damages and changes, when you're freezing things or drying things or preserving things in other ways. But, we have been preserving meats in various ways for quite some time. We haven't had freezers, obviously, for much of our history. But, there are periods like during the ice ages and different people in the Arctic, circle and things like that, or on the other side, towards Antarctic, that likely would have frozen things. And, during the ice ages, God knows, because there's evidence of people doing mammoth drops, just like the Native Americans would do buffalo drops, scaring these large herd of these animals over a cliff. They'd all crash and burn, and then they'd harvest them up at the bottom of the cliff. And then they would eat for years on that, potentially, or at least a long time. And, were they making pemmican like the Native Americans were, over 1 million years ago, which is when we have some of the earliest evidence of mammoth drops, or were they just leaving them in the cold storage that was the ice ages, right? Now, there weren't always ice ages; they're intermixed throughout that period, so they probably were drying them. Figured out how to dry them and preserve them in other ways, but it does raise a good question. I mean, there are differences. You can find a lot of different things about this will denature. Obviously freezer burn. That's damaging, the meat, and but there's a difference also with freezing in your freezer and then thawing it and freezing it and thawing it and freezing it, you're going to make those ice crystals, form up, damage the tissue, and then they melt, and then they freeze, and they melt, and they freeze. When you're doing it like sort of flash freezing in a very, very quick process, it spares that damage. It doesn't damage these things as much. And so, if you're buying like a cow from a butcher, you're going to get less damage when you get that flash frozen thing and you get it straight into your freezer and maintain it at that cold temperature than if you're just sort of throwing something in the freezer. But I think in the grand scheme of things, that if you're still eating meat, this is still going to be better. It's still going to be an improvement on anything else. And so, if you're feeling that, you do better on fresh meat that you can buy, then do that. And but if your access is to frozen meats and things like that, that's still better than the alternatives. And I can't say for sure if it's all that much better or worse than just getting it fresh, but it's definitely better than the alternative. So I wouldn't I wouldn't shake a stick at it anyway and just be, oh my God, I turn my nose up at it, because that was the option, then go eat a salad or something reckless like that. I'd still just eat the meat.
Nice. So we have super chats coming through here like nobody's business. So we've got one from Penny here. It says, 1 year carnivore, amazing improvements in all aspects. I had a chronic adrenal fatigue incident. Do you approach your fasting and workout approach differently? You mean different to each other?
Well, I think she means in the context of chronic adrenal fatigue.
Right. Okay.
But
So, Dr. Chaffee, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think that you don't need to fast on a carnivore diet. A lot of the benefits that you get are really just from not eating the wrong thing, and specifically not eating things that spike your insulin. And, this is even something that David Sinclair from Harvard talks about, of just like, well, you need to fast because you need to get your insulin down for, 72 hours so that you can turn on all of these longevity genes. I don't know, but I don't know why he's not seeing that connection between, a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, which is should be a ketogenic diet, and the fact that your insulin is going to be low the whole time as well. And that there are studies showing that you do turn on those same longevity genes and go through autophagy and mitophagy and stimulate, all these cellular and subcellular processes, which are very, very beneficial, and genetic processes as well, turn on different genes and turn off others. And so you really get most, if not all, the benefits from just not eating the wrong thing and from getting your insulin down. And there are studies which look at a so-called fasting mimicking diet, because keto people think that, oh my God, that's just a fad, that's a ridiculous thing, or it's dangerous because of ketoacidosis. So they call it by different names. They call it a fasting mimicking diet. They say, well, we see all these benefits from fasting, but that can be difficult for people. So what about a diet that mimics fasting? Is that going to confer the same benefit as this endpoint that we were looking at here with fasting? And they find that in a lot of these things, yes, actually they do give the exact same benefit by just not eating carbs, by just not having high insulin and not eating the wrong things. You get these same benefits. And so it's and some of them are actually better. Some people get hair loss and have other sorts of problems with fasting. But if you're getting enough protein, like over 100 grams of protein a day, that hair loss, even if you're not eating anything else, you're just maintaining at least 100 grams of protein. There are studies show that you don't get the hair loss, and you don't damage yourself in that way with long-term fast. So I don't think that fasting is a great idea. I don't think it's a necessary thing either. If people want to do that, sort of reset things and sort of have a different relationship with food, and just recognize that they don't have to eat every day, and they don't have to do that. They don't have to just eat constantly and just feed the beast. That can be helpful. That could be sort of from a more mental mindset, but reset. But I don't think that it necessarily helps you physically on top of just eating the right thing. And if you are someone with adrenal fatigue, I don't think it's a good idea at all, because, you could put your body under a bit more undue stress than you actually want it to. And you can press your adrenals to start, compensating for that fast when you really don't have any room to compensate anymore. So I think that it's important, and especially if you're dealing with health issues, that you really just need to eat enough fatty meat and let your body heal and get better.
Nice. Okay, so we've got another super chat here from Judy, and Judy says, today is day 1. Oh, nice. And I'm excited for my new journey. I'm 68 years young. I don't have a gallbladder. Is there something I need to eat, drink, or take to help my journey? Just add something quickly anecdotal. I interviewed a guy recently who has no gallbladder, and he successfully is doing carnivore and has done for the last 3.5 years. He said that the only thing he has to do is kind of space out the way he's eating. And basically, if he eats too much fat at once, he knows about it. So, he just spaces that out. So actually, you can find him at Minimalist Carnivore. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Anything else they wanted to add?
Well, I've heard a lot of people that have mentioned the fact that they have to take like an ox bile or something like that, and they have to ease into eating because they have to get the way that their ducts or their body produces the chemical to break down the food is much different than someone with a gallbladder with the bile working correctly. But those are the two main things that I've heard people talk about doing this. So I would just ease into it, don't try to, don't get frustrated, if you have some issues right at first, but it'll come. So other than that, that's really all I have to offer on that one.
If I may add to that, I don't have any gallbladder issues, but I can certainly speak of experience having digestive issues because I've had surgery on my intestines, my colon, and then over by my appendix, and it's never been normal. So for me, I've just learned to live with it. I space my meals, and if I'm planning to go out to a big event, I'm just very careful with what I eat and how much fat I take in at once. But certainly ox bile, I've heard it can help, but I really wouldn't know anything about that. But just hang in there because those few moments on the toilet really are better than the alternative, being sick and diseased and that icky stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, asking about, is there something special you need to eat and drink? Meat and water. Just eat that, and you'll be fine. So, again, even if you're missing a gallbladder, you're still human. This is still, what you're supposed to eat. You'll still make bile. It's, the gallbladder doesn't make bile; it just stores it and concentrates it so that you can use it at a later date. So, like Dave was saying, some people find that they just need to space out their fatty meals because bile is what emulsifies fat and allows you to absorb it into your lymphatics and then take that through the rest of your body. So if you don't have adequate amount of bile, then you're not going to be able to absorb fat to an appreciable extent. You can only absorb a very small amount of it, and the rest of it goes out, right? So you might find that you have diarrhea. So if you have like a big, large fatty meal and a lot of this is coming out, and you have to have a dramatic exit to the bathroom, then you're not really absorbing all that fat because you don't have all the bile just stored up, ready to squish out on from your gallbladder. So you might have to space out your meals throughout the day and just eat the same amount and the same amount of fat. You just do it at different times because your liver just sort of constantly makes and drips out bile over the course of 24 hours. It makes around 800 mils to a liter of bile, depending on the size of the person. And, so that's not all coming out in one go, but that's a 24-hour amount of bile. Your body wants a 24-hour amount of fat. So you can't necessarily eat it all in one go because it's sort of dripping out into your intestine, and you just sort of have to catch it as it's coming through because it's going to be reabsorbed further down in your intestine. And so some people just need to just sort of space those meals out, and that's fine for them. I don't think that you necessarily, if you want to absorb like a huge amount just that time, if you're at a banquet or something like that, a feast, and you just want to be able to absorb a lot, then, you could do that. I don't think that you you want to really play with that too much, because your body makes a specific amount of bile because it wants to absorb a specific amount of fat. And if you tinker with that and add in ox bile, then you're going to be forcing your body to absorb more fat than it thinks it wants. And who knows what's going to happen after that. So I would just sort of let your body do its thing. Also, quite a lot of people form what's called a pseudo gallbladder, which is an outpouching of the common bile duct. And it just acts exactly like your gallbladder would. It sort of makes this little pocket, and it stores bile, concentrates it. And then when you have, fat that comes in, it triggers your brain, says, oh, there's fat coming, squishes that out and pushes this stuff out. So there are quite a lot of people on carnivore that they're eating, high fat diet and still eat once a day. And they have perfectly fine absorption. If you're not one of those people, if you haven't formed a suitably working pseudo gallbladder, then just space out your meals, and you should be fine.
Thank you. We've got a super chat here from Amber and Dan's Carnivore Live. 4 months carnivore, arthritis, premenopause, dysmenorrhea, migraines, so much better. Way more energy. Don't give up. It's 99% mental. Nice work, Amber and Dan. That's awesome to hear. Congratulations.
Awesome.
Okay. And Jamie says, never diabetic and strict keto for 2 years, less than 20 grams total a day. Fasting blood glucose suddenly high for a few weeks. 130 to 166 versus 75 to 80 normal. Constant stomach noise regardless of food intake. Thoughts? Dr. Chaffee, any thoughts on that?
What is less than 12? So less than 20 grams of carbs total.
Carbs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, there can be a lot of things that affect that. I mean, your blood sugar is hormonally driven in a lot of ways as well. If you have a lot of stress in your life, you're not sleeping properly, and you're worried about things, you're going to raise your cortisol. Cortisol will raise your blood sugar, and so you can have disruptions there. So I would address stress in your life. I would also understand that you're on a keto diet. Has anything changed in your keto diet? Because keto is just the absence of something, right? It's just like vegan. It's a very non-specific term. Vegan just means no meat. Keto just means no carbs, right? But vegan, does include Oreo cookies and heroin, right? So that's not really helpful,
Right.
Because you need to know what you are supposed to eat as well as what you're not supposed to eat. And, that's why I say it's important what not to eat as what to eat, right? So eat meat, fat, water, don't eat all these other things, right? So, but in keto and vegan, that you're only getting one side of that equation. So keto can still have a lot of plants that have a ton of different disruptive chemicals that can disrupt your insulin, can disrupt your leptin, disrupt your blood sugar, disrupt your hormones in other ways, your sex hormones as well, and can derange all these. There are different lectins in plants that don't have carbohydrates in them that will bind more tightly to insulin receptors than insulin does and get more of an insulinogenic effect. Block leptin as well, cause all sorts of issues with your hormonal health and your blood sugar. So there are other things in plants, regardless of carbs, that can affect your blood sugar and affect your hormones in particular. Less than 20 grams a day, I would just probably just get rid of those altogether and just stop the carbs and just try eating just fatty meat. Look at what changes you've made. If you've made any changes to your diet, you may not have, in which case it would probably indicate more that there are some stresses in your life, and that's sort of artificially raising your cortisol temporarily. Like people say, cortisol is helpful in the morning to wake you up, and then if you're fighting a leopard or something like that, but we're not supposed to be fighting leopards all the time, so you get this stress response so that you can go and fight and kill or prevent yourself from being killed, and then you need to calm the hell down, right? But if we're always in this constant stress state, then you're always in that I'm fighting a leopard phase and never calm the hell down, and it does a lot of deranged things to your body. So That's what I would try. I think that you do get better control on a more controlled diet, like a carnivore diet, where you're at least eliminating all those other things that are going to affect your hormones, like insulin and leptin. And then you have to address your stress. You have to make sure you're sleeping properly. You have to make sure that you're maybe just have some conscious meditation, just get some time to just chill the hell out and find yourself in a position that you're not as stressed out all the time. And that can help as well. And just get rid of the rest of the carbs as well. Having low carbs, I think, is worse than having no carbs or even higher carbs, because you're just starting to trigger your insulin, but you're not giving yourself enough carbs to actually do anything with it. So it can actually make you feel pretty crappy, maybe even a bit more stressed out. You're spiking your cortisol to try to compensate for that, to try to bring your blood sugar up, because you're not actually, able to maintain it normally through normal ketosis or just through the abundance of carbohydrates in your diet. So you put yourself actually in a stress state, and your body's trying to compensate for that, and you can get some problems there. So I would just get rid of all the carbs and then try to get rid of other plants as well. Try, just going onto just a carnivore diet, see if that helps, and then try and lower your stress and get some proper sleep and chill out a bit.
Thank you. Okay, so Texas Donna, if I'm wanting to lose weight, about 25 pounds, on days that I have a lot of physical activity, is my metabolism better off if I eat a little more on those days, or is it more complicated than that? Cassie, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Regarding the physical activity, metabolism. I mean, my metabolism is all wacky. I have hypothyroidism, so I really can't answer to that. It's not normal, but I've noticed that when I do work out, regardless whether I'm having a little bit of dairy or whatnot, that the physical activity certainly does help. And for me anyway, it counteracts the effects of what dairy I would be taking in. So I don't know how complicated it is. I mean, Donna, you're doing amazing. You're just walking and just keep walking. And by the end of the month, you're going to notice differences and you're going to feel better. Your energy is going to be increased. Just stay with your hydration and eat your meat and you're going to feel great.
Well, I mean, the whole calories in, calories out thing. I mean, your expenditures. I mean, it doesn't. You're not going to ever have enough physical activity to overcome a bad diet. So if you put the right thing in to give your body the nutrition, I found that I was getting the nutrients, and my body was so satiated that it really didn't matter what I did that day. I was cool, and I had basically the same thing every day. It's not like I would, on the days where I would be physically exerting myself more than normal, I would change the way that looked for me. There are times where my body gives me signals that I want to eat more, or I need, hey, you need more food, go eat some more food. And I will go do that, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the physical, because I've worked that extremely hard and ate the same thing I ate on a day where I sat around and did nothing, So, I mean, that's just my, my intake or my view on that. Maybe you guys can add something to that.
I also, I hope I didn't cut you off, but I also,
No, you good.
if I'm hungry, I go ahead and eat. Like, I don't force myself not to eat or force to fast constantly. And so like normally I eat about 2 meals a day, but for example, today I woke up and about 2 hours into work this morning, I realized that I was hungry, and they cooked fresh bacon in the oven down there. That may not have the cleanest ingredients in the world, but I was like, for some reason I want some bacon this morning. So I went down there and I got the bacon, and I didn't worry about it. So I actually ate 3 meals today, but I just kind of listen to my body, regardless if I'm working out or if I'm not working out. If my body's telling me, hey, you're hungry, then I eat. But if not, then don't eat until you feel like you're hungry. What about one of y'all?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, I think that you you sometimes do need a bit more, but I think you just listen to your body. So there's no formula. You don't, well, there are formulas, but they're all individual, and you're not going to figure it out. No one knows the exact right formula for each individual person, because it would be individual for each person. And so your body knows that better. Nobody knows your body and your biochemistry more than your body. And so, it is extremely in tune with exactly what it needs. And so if you're working out and you're doing different sorts of things, your body will tell you if it wants more or less in the way of nutrients. There will be times that if you have excess fat to lose, that you might work out and do these sorts of things. But, I should eat because I'm doing more today than it was on other days. You might find actually I'm not as hungry. I don't even need to eat as much. I found on days when I was slimming down to a more stable body fat percentage, that there were a couple times that I didn't want to eat it all. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, why doesn't a steak sound good? I cooked it anyway, tried to eat it. I'm like, this just does not taste good. I'm just not enjoying this. I was very confused by that. But I was just like, okay, I'm not enjoying this. I'm just going to stop. And I was very worried about that. I was worried about not having energy the next day, not feeling my best. I felt amazing. I felt absolutely fantastic. And then, that steak, which is now cold and dry and in the fridge, it tasted amazing the next day when I got home, right? Because, my body was telling me, like, we don't need it now. We've got enough, just go to bed. And, then the next day it was like, yeah, okay, bring that stuff in. We want that. So just listen to your body, the last thing you want to do is limit the amount of food that you're getting into, because that will tell your body in no uncertain terms that you're in a famine and that you don't have access to the amount of resources that your body is asking you for. And so you just give your body what it's asking you for. You don't have to artificially increase or lower or whatever to fit what you think your body wants. Just listen to what your body wants. Eat fatty meat until it stops tasting good, and let your body do the rest. And if you do that, you will show your body that you are in a place of abundance, and that you don't need to lower your metabolism and store fat and guard this jealously, because you don't know when the next meal is going to be coming around the corner, and you might die if you don't conserve your energy properly. So just eat what your body's asking you for, and you should. It is more complicated. It's a lot more complicated than all of these sorts of things. So it's way too complicated for us to figure it out. So you just need to let your body do its thing. Anybody who tells you that this is that exact formula, is going to be wrong. I mean, there are just too many variables. There are too many things that we don't know and don't understand and cannot calculate in each individual person. It's not possible to do with our current technology, and probably never going to happen. So, you just need to let your body do its thing, because it knows exactly what it wants and how much of it wants. And so it'll tell you based on your hunger. So just give it what it wants and let it do the rest.
Nice. Okay, so we've got a super chat here specifically for Dr. Chaffee. Mary O'Donnell. Dr. Chaffee, last night I told you I broke out in hives since going carnivore 3 weeks. Found out there's a syndrome from Lone Star tick bite that causes alpha-gal syndrome, acquired meat allergy. Any thoughts if you've heard of that?
Well, yeah. Well, I did sort of wonder. That was on a live I was doing last night. That you're talking about getting hives, and I did sort of wonder, because like it's only certain meats. And if I remember, it's like sort of like the red meats and things like that. It has this carbohydrate really that you'll build up an immunity towards, and makes it difficult to eat certain sorts of meat. So there are meats that you can eat. I think fish is okay, and there's a couple other, like the white meats and things like that. I think are all right as well. But I'm just not remembering exactly. It's been a while since I looked into that. But there are meats that you can eat. You can still eat a carnivore diet. You're just not really going to be able to eat sort of red meat. So if you think that's happened, if you've had it, and that was one of the things too, you didn't mention anything about a tick bite, so I didn't really sort of go into that. But if you have gotten a tick bite, or you think you may have been exposed to that, that's a possibility. So just eat the different meats, see which meats. You can just Google this on which ones you can and can't eat, and just focus on those. If those are better, and you're not getting a breakout, then that's fine. You can just eat those. The good thing about alpha gal, which was like absolutely terrifying to me. I was just like, that is not okay. Like finally I came across, Carnivore, like rediscovered all this and just feeling amazing. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, Lone Star take can make you allergic to meat. I'm like, absolutely not. I can't deal with that. No, I need to stay from wherever the hell that little bug is, because like, I wouldn't be able to do that. And but the good news is that it seems to be temporary. It seems to only last a few months. So there are meats that you can eat for the rest of your life. You don't need to rely on the meats that would trigger that. But the good news is that it seems that after a few months, this goes away, and so your body can get back to normal and start eating the red meats as well. So if you think that might be the case for you, if you think you might have been exposed to that, then you can certainly try just eating the different meats that don't have that antigen on it, and see how you go. And if that makes a significant improvement, great. Keep going for that for a while, and in sort of 3 to 6 months, you can try bringing some of this other stuff back in and see what that does for you.
You got to watch out when you come out here to the sticks where Cassie and I live, man. Matter of fact, it's not just them little ticks out there that get you. My son, you see right under the sign there?
No, yeah, Jesus.
So my son, my wife and my son are walking like that's within. I could throw a rock to where that bear was crossing the road. I was talking to somebody. I think it was Dr. Kill. You see under the sign, it just shows you how.
Wow.
Like,
that was down the road from your house?
It was, yeah. It's like, matter of fact, right where I walk at, my wife and my son were walking that little route today. You never know what's going to get you in the sticks. Ain't that right, Kip? You might get snatched up. You might get bit by a tick that turns the one thing
absolutely.
you eat against you, man.
Absolutely. Y'all should see the size of the mosquitoes down here in Alabama. They are huge. And these mosquitoes down here will tear you up, buddy.
Dude, I told Cassie the other week, we were talking on the phone. I said, man, you're from Chicago. I said, I've been trying to get out of South Carolina for a long time. I just can't leave because the mosquitoes keep bringing me back. I'm like, it's horrible here in South Carolina with the mosquitoes, man. I ain't kidding you.
They are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
They're terrible.
Anyway, I digress. I just had to make mention of that. There's a lot of stuff that'll get you out there if you ain't careful. Thanks for the super chat, Amy.
Thanks for the super chat, Amy. And also from Rebecca, thank you very much. And we've got a question here from Norman. Norman says, 66-year-old male, strict carnivore 3 years, recent LDL over 400. CAC was 359 3 years ago, now 357. Body fat 10%. Blood pressure varies 100 over 60 to 160 over 80, but mostly low, not diabetic. Morning blood sugar 4.7. Any concerns with these? Dr. Chaffee, any thoughts about this?
Well, I mean, any sort of major medical issues, I mean, should be discussed, with your doctor. And it's not really, unfortunately possible to give like a full medical consult or direct medical advice in this context. But a lot of these things are looking, fine. Your blood pressure is saying it varies, but is in a very good range. It's also in a not so good range. So, I would wonder, what is there any sort of variations in the medications that you're taking? Are you sort of dropping someone you shouldn't be? Are you getting stressed out, or are you actually getting, resting and sitting down and just calming down for 5 minutes and just breathing before you take your blood pressure? Or sometimes you're taking it and just going off. You need to just sit down and relax and just take it easy and then check your blood pressure, because sometimes when you're anticipating taking your blood pressure, you're like, oh God, I hope it's not high. It's going to go high. It's obviously going to go high. And, your blood sugar, being 4.7, these are sort of UK numbers that's perfectly fine. So you want that between sort of 4 and 5, in UK, Australia, that sort of thing. So in the US, I mean, that's going to be right around, the 70, 80 mark, so that's perfectly fine. Your LDL, I've just never thought or I just do not think that LDL is a marker for heart disease or disease in general. First of all, there are many different kinds of LDL. We have no idea what they are just from your normal number. And when you make LDL, the majority of the LDL and cholesterol that you make is well, you make it and it's from your liver, and so it's the large buoyant LDL is very good for you, and then it can be damaged and crippled by glycation oxidation, things like that, and that can be less good. That doesn't necessarily mean it's causing harm. It just means that it's damaged, and it's not what it's supposed to be. So the things that are damaging your LDL can also be damaging everything else, and so that can raise your CAC score, that overall damage and process to your body that could also be damaging your LDL. But I honestly I see there's a preponderance of evidence against LDL being a direct driver of heart disease. CAC score, that did come down 3 years ago. I don't know, how a lot of other things about your health and everything else, but over 100 is sort of an area of concern that's like, okay, there's a lot going on there. It's going in the right direction, not very fast, but at least it's going in the right direction. There can be a lot of other things that influence that as well. So I think that you should still talk to your doctor. You should still have input and medications. I don't think necessarily that statins are a great idea. Because there are a lot of studies that show that, hey, look, maybe these aren't actually as good as they're cracked up to be. They'll also stop your body from making the large buoyant LDL. They do nothing for the small, dense, damaged LDL. So that's not very good. It's the small, dense, damaged LDL that have a stronger association with heart disease. But again, correlation is not causation. So you can have something damage your LDL, cause the small, dense LDL, and also be damaging other things. So is it the small, dense LDL that's causing that, or is a small LDL a sign of other damage being done in your body, as opposed to that's now going to go cause problems? But either way, it doesn't reduce the SD-LDL. It only reduces the large buoyant LDL, which is good. That's what your body is making on purpose in order to run your body and your health. So there's a lot going on there. I don't necessarily think that anything's too far out of whack, but that's a very small snapshot of your overall health. And so I can't really give you any specific advice. So, if you do have concerns, talk to your doctor. If you're feeling good and doing well, that's a good sign. So, keep that in mind. And if you have any specific questions, you should talk to your doctor.
Thank you. And we've got a question here for Cassie from Bella Brett for you. Thank you for the super chat. Cassie, what do you feel has been the hardest part of your journey? Looking fabulous, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you, Bella. Beautiful Bella. The hardest part about my journey, I think I'm my own worst enemy. We slipped so many times. And if you're not familiar with my background, I did have colon cancer. It'll be 7 years in September. Surgery, it had metastasized to one lymph node. But after my PET scan came back clear and I was still diagnosed 6 months of chemotherapy, that didn't sit right with me. So I refused that and I decided to heal my body by way of diet. Well, the problem with that is I like food way too much. And knowing that cancer for me, it was still very scary. And I thought it could return at any moment. I would slip and go back to my old ways, eating that garbage food. So being my own worst enemy is probably the hardest thing, knowing what harm I could be causing myself. However, through this process, the gaps, I don't even know the last time I had a slip or what you could even consider a slip. The gaps are longer in between slips. And when I do slip, it would be just something very small, very small. So, I beat myself up with that. I still am a little concerned about that because we did slip 3 times on the channel and even for a few months feeding myself sugar. But That was the hardest thing, was getting over myself, getting over the fact that food is entertainment or it's comfort. I mean, you can still make it comfort. A steak can be very comforting, in fact. But yeah, so that was it. But it's also, you know, a blessing and a curse, because I've learned from it. So my biggest downfall was, you know, my best thing, the biggest learning experience that I've had. So thank you for that question, and best wishes to you.
And you do look fabulous tonight. It's like Beauty and the Beast on here tonight, you know. And so, like, honestly, you really have done phenomenal. And I've told you this just because, you know, we've traveled the journey for the last year together.
That's
you know,
right.
You're definitely not the same person. Like, you can see the transformation, you know, in your life over the last year. So I'm convinced that, you know, you get stronger, you learn what works, what doesn't work, you learn where you're weak and where you're strong, and you learn to guard your strengths just like you guard your weaknesses, because, you know, oftentimes that's a lot of the places where you're going to get attacked. If you're not guarding your strengths, oftentimes that, you know, you can get attacked in those places as well. So it's I'm thankful that you were able to join us tonight. And I love Larry, but man, it's so much, you know, Beauty and the Beast is, you know, a great show tonight.
Well, thank you.
I love you guys too.
So, thank you. So, Cassie, another one. Beth has sent a super chat. Thank you very much, Beth. Cassie, I have the same problem for the same reason, colon cancer surgery, but I can't get it to settle down, taking a gamble, leaving the house.
It is a gamble. There is no doubt. And oftentimes it comes without warning. Like I said, you have to time your meals. I found that when I eat pork belly just a little bit too much, like, whoa, that was a big mistake, you know, maybe 1 ounce and not 5, because it's very fatty. We have to learn to adjust now. And this is actually something, I'm glad this got brought up, because I was going to ask Dr. Chaffee about this. You know, will it ever be normal again? I've roughly have 18 to 24 inches of large intestine that has been removed, once in 2015 and then in 2016. So is there a chance, like with the ox bile, is there something that you might recommend for both Beth and myself to maybe help things out? Or is it the same thing with the gallbladder, that you just got to time your meals, it is what it is, and just keep chugging along?
Well, it's highly individual, and some people do, you know, get, you know, their body does compensate sort of down the road. But, you know, I mean, these organs, you know, do have a specific job, and if too much of it is removed, then they aren't able to perform that job, unfortunately. And so, if you have your colon taken away, or a large portion of it taken away, you know, its job is to, you know, quite a big job is to, you know, dehydrate, you know, the chyle that's coming out, and just sort of turn that into solid form stool. So if you've got a much smaller area, you know, it's not going to have as much of an ability to do that. And so you might find that you're not able to dehydrate those things as much as you would otherwise. That doesn't mean drink less water, you know, because you don't want to, like, you know, get dehydrated metabolically either. But it's something that unfortunately, you know, may continue to cause a problem. There are different surgeries that can cause sort of kinks and turns to sort of slow things down, to solidify a bit more and be a bit more, you know, easy on your system. But that's not necessarily a perfect solution, and it's probably not even an option for everybody. And it's probably, you know, something that a lot of people will want to avoid anyway. So unfortunately, it's sort of a time will tell if your body, you know, adjusts, and then you're able to sort of adjust different things that you're eating in a way that affects a change. Great. And it might be that your body's able to sort of compensate in time, but I wouldn't bank on it anyway. You just have to sort of see, and hopefully your body does compensate, and then just, you know, do what you're doing logistically, and try to, you know, eat certain things that don't cause more of a problem. And unfortunately, Yeah, it's not necessarily going to get better or be perfect anyway. It might have to sort of figure out the best way to deal with the situation, unfortunately.
Well, there's our answer, Beth. Quite frankly, Dr. Chaffee, that was the most disappointing answer I've ever had.
I know. Well, but the thing is I mean, it could get better, but I mean, there's no guarantee, you know, and so there's, you know, it's very hard to say, you know, if something's going to get better. And however, you know, there are different ways of sort of manipulating things in the way you're eating and what you're doing that can at least improve things in that manner as well. So just sort of find, just like the dog's bile, just spacing out your meals. You can do that with bile. You can see if there's different things that you can do that doesn't give you the problems that you would have with other ways of eating.
Thank you.
And certainly fiber is not going to help you, because that's just all going to come out in a disastrous sort of fashion. So yeah,
I'd rather find out.
yeah. So either way, what you're doing now is still going to be better and an improvement. Yeah.
Thank you. So lightning round, the Carnivore Road. Thank you for the super chat. So being in different parts of the world, what are each of you going to do right after the live stream ends? You all are great. Okay, so for me, I'm going to go and eat a steak. Sean, how about you?
Now that I was gonna go to bed, but now I'm kind of thinking about another steak too, man. You know, no, I'll probably end up going to bed. It's already about 10:30, so I'm exhausted. Cassie, you?
I will probably have a little conversation with Larry and get ready to hit the hay. It's getting close to bedtime. Yep. Kip, what are you gonna do?
And I'm gonna
smoke some meat.
I was gonna say I'm just gonna snuggle up next to my wife and say something real nice to her, and then try to get me some sleep tonight. What about you, Dr. Chaffee?
Did you? Never mind. I ain't going there.
Well, what I was planning on doing, it's sunny here in Perth, but it's also horribly cold. So I was actually going to go jump into the water and do like a cold plunge sort of thing, because I hate myself and I want to, obviously punish myself. Yes. And so I'll do that and jump in there, hate my life for a few minutes, and then like take a shower, and then might go to the gym and get a bit of exercise in, because I have actually some free time today that I'm not jam packed with a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll probably do that, probably work out, and then I've got just a ton of work and reading and writing on the computer and stuff to do. So that'll be my day. And then tomorrow I'm going go-karting, which is great. So
now you got to get it on camera now. Since you said it, you got to get Ella to go, get her to film it. You jumping in that water. I want to see it. Yep. That cold water. No, I'm just kidding. No.
That's miserable. I hate the cold. I'm such a baby about the cold, and I just hate it. But like, I don't know. It's people tell me it's good for me. I don't know. So, and I do feel better when I do it, actually, funny enough. So, just do it. Just, man up and do it.
Nice. Okay. So Tina Cox, sent super chat or super sticker, and also Araceli, thank you very much, guys. We're gonna have to close this out soon, but I was just wondering if we get to a couple more questions. We've got one from Michael here. I do OMAD in the AM, 1 to 1.5 pounds of steak or burgers with cheese and eggs, bacon, butter, UPS driver, and I lift. If I'm hungry after work, would eating to satiation again lead to fat gain via gluconeogenesis? I've just got someone at my hotel room door. Can I pass this on to you for a second, Sean?
Yeah, sure, man. Like I've mentioned this before, and the best of my understanding, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, gluconeogenesis is the body's way to maintain homeostasis for the needs of what your body's demand is, correct? So, when you think of that process going on, it's your body signaling, hey, we need whatever it is glucose, and the body is taking those nutrients and creating what you need with what you're giving it. So, yeah, I mean, my number one thing is if your body signals are working properly and they're telling you you're hungry, you need to eat. When my body tells me to eat, like in a few minutes, whenever it is, I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to go eat. And then I'm not going to eat until my body is like, hey, you're hungry. You need to eat. That I don't have a scheduled time to eat. Usually it's about 10 and 2 every day, but I don't stick to that. It's not etched in stone, so it's important to learn to listen to your body and don't try to like put your body on a routine, an unrealistic expectation of I'm going to eat at 7, 12, and 5, because your chances are you're probably just not hungry at that time. Right. So listen to your body signals, and when they start signaling you, and now if they're not working properly, obviously you gotta just plan for that and work with it and see if we can get your hormone signals functioning correctly by putting the right nutrients in there and healing that. Outside of that, I mean, that's what I got. What you got, Cassie?
Glucogenesis, other than the explanation that you just gave, I didn't even know what that was, honestly. Eat when you're hungry until the meat no longer tastes good and feel good. That's the only advice I have for you.
Yeah.
Kip?
I was gonna say that if I tried to like overeat, or like if I tried to eat a ton of food in one meal and then later on eat a ton of food, especially if I'm eating the right kind of nutritious food like beef or steak or something like that, like my body's gonna tell me. I might be able to do it for a day or 2 days or something and like force a lot, but my body's gonna tell me, look, dude, you're having so much food, and like I'll naturally start backing off. I don't have to tell myself how much food to eat in a day. My body just kind of tells me like, hey, about 2 pounds of meat, sometimes 2.5 pounds of meat is like my sweet spot.
Yeah. Well, I think if you're exactly as everyone said, if your body's telling you what to eat, then, and as long as you're not eating carbs and lectins and all these other sorts of things that can derange your hunger signals, you should just listen to that. Sometimes people, when they're doing a whole bunch of different dieting and other sorts of things, they can derange their hunger signals, they can derange their hormones, they can derange their leptin, and maybe there's going to be an imbalance of what your body's telling you what's actually perfect, but that normalizes over time, and so you just need to just give your body what it needs and what it wants, and then it'll sort itself out in the wash long term. So in general, if your body's telling you to eat more, just have a bit more. Like, that's totally fine. You're working out, you're lifting, you're working a physically demanding job. That's fine. Give your body food. So, we're all going to need a slightly different amount of food. I often eat around, 2 pounds plus of very fatty steak. If I'm working out, I eat 4 easily. Right. So it just depends on what your body's doing. So if your body's asking you for more food and you're only eating meat, if you're only eating what we're supposed to eat, then I think you can listen to your body's signals. Some people, very few people, such as Kelly Hogan, might find that while their health is improving, and their energy and all these other things are getting better, their weight's not really getting better. And then about 6 months later, all of a sudden, it does get a lot better. I think that's that hormonal disruption that had to sort of fix and normalize. And once that got down to a normal level, then the weight started coming off for her and others. But either way, that's not going to happen unless you're giving your body what it's asking for as well. So just give your body what it's asking for, and remember, this is a long-term game, right? So this is just, think about that as that's like, you're doing this just for the rest of your life. This is the healthiest way that you can eat. Just keep doing this, and over time, in the long run, you'll see the improvements that you want.
If you don't mind, may I ask you a question, Dr. Chaffee? This is something I was very curious about, and I know a lot of our listeners would be too, because a lot of us, we tend to slip. So my question really is, how dangerous is it for us to go from burning fat to burning carbs, getting back into getting back into ketosis and back out, and you're weaving in and out of that. How dangerous is that for us metabolically? Or is it just that our body can compensate? And
No, our body's pretty good at compensating. If you're not eating carbs for a very long time, for several months, your body's just not going to, to preload insulin in your pancreas. And so this is why some less well thought out studies and people have said that being in ketosis for a long time can increase your insulin resistance, even though your blood sugar is normal the whole time, your insulin is low the whole time. So it doesn't really make too much sense on its face. But then they say, oh, well, you give people in ketosis, long-term ketosis, glucose tolerance test, and it's raised. So that means it's insulin resistance. No, it means the glucose was raised. What's the insulin? Insulin's still low. So it's like, okay, well, then there's no resistance, right? Because insulin's low, right? And then the insulin starts coming up, and then you get that insulin response, and blood sugar comes down. So what's happening there physiologically is that you're just not pre-making the insulin. If you have a chronic exposure to carbohydrates, which are damaging to your body, having those be elevated to such an extent, then your body's going to pre-make insulin, because it's like, hey, we've got to be right on the border on this. It's like we have to be right, ready to go. And so you're going to pre-make insulin. It's going to be ready to go. Bang, it comes out. You eat carbs, bang, it comes out. Well, if you're not doing that, you're not exposing yourself to that. You're not going to build up that like tolerance to alcohol, right? If you're drinking a bunch of alcohol all the time, it takes more and more alcohol to get drunk, because your body's protecting you more. You build up that tolerance. So you build up these tolerance to carbohydrates with that pre-made insulin, and then you eat carbohydrates after being in ketosis or on a ketogenic diet for a long time, and all of a sudden, you have a bit of a weird response. But in a couple of days, your body will say like, oh, okay, this idiot's eating carbs again. We have to start pre-making our insulin, and so your body adapts pretty quickly. So while you may have a bit of a jump in your blood sugar, that comes down in fairly short order. And then you find that people are actually more insulin sensitive. They need less insulin to get a better response. So their insulin levels actually stay moderately low. They don't have to have these massively high insulin levels in order to bring their blood sugar down to a normal level. And they'll actually get a better response with less insulin, and it'll be quicker. So in a couple of days, their glucose tolerance test will actually be better than the average non-insulin resistant person. So I don't think that there's much of a problem. I don't think there's more of a danger going back and forth than just eating carbs and things like that on a normal daily basis. You're going to be better off in the periods that you're not eating all these carbs, and you're just eating what we're supposed to eat, and your insulin level is being maintained at a lower level. The going back and forth, I don't think causes too much problem, except for that initial sort of bump in your blood sugar, which will normalize in a couple of days. The only main thing that's doing to you when you do slip off, is that it's just going to take a bit of time to get back into it. You're going to have a bit of a lag, and you're going to have to sort of get switch on and off the different genes that you need to run optimally without carbs. And so you have a bit of a slip up. This junk is going to stay in your system for a while. You're going to have a bit more inflammation. You're going to have a bit less ketones. You're going to have a bit of these plant, toxins and things like that. They're just going to take a few days to clear out of your system, but they'll go. So you're not kicked off the team. You're not out of the club. If you just sort of slip up, it's these sorts of things happen, and just be mindful of it and say, okay, well, I'm just going to get back on right away. So it's just the main thing is to get straight back on the horse. And so you slip up, you have that thing, and you just use that, and you look at that and it's like, hey, I'm not actually feeling my best. My energy's not great. I'm sore, I'm stiff. I've had a autoimmune flare up, and I don't want that. I don't want that crap anymore. And so use that to gear yourself, and steel yourself against slipping up the next time as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So we're about time, guys. So just before we say goodbye, I just wanted to say, if we didn't get to your question, please feel free to post the questions in the comments below the video anytime, and we will do our best to get back to you. Just as one final thing before we head off, I wonder if we could just do this quick question as a bit of a lightning question. So, what is the strangest, most unique, or crazy meat that you have had, and did you like it? And I guess I'll go with emu. It's I guess in Australia not so crazy, but it's a bit different for people not living in Australia or South Africa, and it tastes good, but it's not very fatty. Okay, so that's the only problem with that. Sean, how about you?
Craziest that like crawdads. I've had crawdads, alligator, bear, shark. Well, we used to have this thing every once in a while at church. This they called it a beast feast, and everybody would get this exotic meat, and they would bring something different, and that's about as crazy as stuff as I've ever had. But this was a long time before I ate carnivore too. So, Cassie, what about you?
Yeah, I've had crawdad too. I've been to my crawfish broil. But the best thing I've ever had, and it's in way of pork, it's a Berkshire pork chop. And oh my gosh, it is the steak of all pork chops. These are heirloom pigs, and just the way they're fed and they're raised, they are absolutely phenomenal. So if you can get your hands on a Berkshire pork chop, I highly recommend it.
I would say for me, I definitely have ate pretty much everything that they just said, and especially the two of y'all that are from the South, because I eat all that stuff. But as well, another thing that I love to eat that some people think is crazy, but like don't knock it till you try it, is, which I don't eat it anymore because I'm carnivore, but I used to love to eat fried frog legs. And a lot of people are scared to eat frog and they think it sounds weird, but fried frog legs, if you gig them, they are super good. What about you, Dr. Chaffee?
Well, I've had frog legs when I was a teenager, and they're actually delicious. That was only once. I've only seen it once, but no, those are great. I've tried to eat sort of most animals that I can get my hands on. Like, so when I was in South Africa, there's just a lot of different animals that you have access to that you just can't get anywhere else. So I've had ostrich. Ostrich was good. I haven't had emu. I'm assuming they're probably fairly similar. The ostrich just tasted identical. Sort of like, yeah. So I would, the ostrich sort of tasted like just sort of beefy chicken. It was just sort of a weird little combination, but it was just sort of beefier chicken. And they had like eland, springbok, kudu. Those were some of the other animals that I had there. I've had crocodile. That was cool. I've always wanted to eat one of those monsters. And it's obviously better if you've hunted it and taken it down yourself, and that's a bit more of an accomplishment. But I've eaten one of them. They have not eaten any of me, so I think that's a win in that regard. And but yeah, other sorts of, I guess, rattlesnake I had at one point. Gosh, what would be the most bizarre things? I can't think of it, but I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff out there, and I think those are some of them.
Nice. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We've had like the busiest times. We had over 600 people in the stream, so that was awesome. And Cassie, any final words?
Oh, well, thanks, guys. This was a blast. I would love to hook up with you guys sometime in the future. And just thanks for the camaraderie. And to all of the viewers out there, thanks for showing up, showing support. Mm-hmm. Hit that share button. Don't forget to hit the like button. And just thank you. No sugar, no carbs, no cheating.
That's right. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, Sean, sorry,
absolutely. It was great to be on the chat with all of y'all tonight. And Cassie kind of stole it out of my mouth. I was going to say something in honor of them being here tonight. I was going to say no sugar, no carbs, and no cheating. But definitely it's good to be in the chat with all y'all tonight. Anybody else got anything they want to add?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Cassie, thank you for being here. I love you and Larry. Y'all are family to me. It's been a great journey. It's been awesome. Kip, thanks, man. It's always fun. Dr. Chaffee, the honor being on here with you. And Dave, I love you too. And so it's always a good time when we get together. You guys, no matter what channel you're watching it from, hit that like button, hit that share button, and be back next week with more questions and stuff like that, because we always have a great time. We enjoy it. We learn something. We try to cut up and have a little bit of fun, and we always usually succeed at that as well. So until next time, you guys stay strong and keep pushing forward. Dave?
Thank you so much for joining, guys. Really appreciate it, and see you next time. Cheers.
Cheers.
See
You guys.
ya.